Well, part three. Let's teach our children to honor their parents and other elders and authority figures verbally, because verbally is a lot of it. There are nonverbal signs of rebellion as well. I think one place we've started getting to, maybe not have gotten fully, is when a child wants to get attention or be the center of attention or draw attention or whatever, many times they will, they got their little song and dance routine they can do, or they can begin to try to inject themselves into an adult conversation, etc. And that is one of the doorways right there where I think training a child, when it's okay, if they need to butt in, how to do that. And there's things where you touch your parent on the arm. You don't say a word. You come up to their conversation, you just touch them on the arm. Well, it's prearranged, if they're sitting there touching the arm, they need to talk. They need to ask permission to go do something or whatever it is. But they don't get authorization to shout down the two adults in their conversation to say, hey, can I have a popsicle or not? Okay, or something like that.
Right. So just a practical example of training politeness, training honoring, that there are people that you need to defer to, and that you can't just blurt out whatever you want, and you can't just exercise yourself, act out in any way you want. That in the notion of politeness, you consider others around you and what's appropriate, and you consider I'm the child in this situation, and there's adults in this situation, and the wild crazy stuff that I would do if I was just among children, I'm not going to do among adults. That gets trained in. That's not automatic. And as an adult, with in mind you're training them to honor their parents, that's not what you're going to do.
One of the hindrances, I think, when kids are little is sometimes, especially when they first start talking very much at all, parents can be so impressed, dazzled, proud of, their vocabulary development, that the inappropriate use of that vocabulary seems to go, right over their head. And they just think it's adorable that little so-and-so said this at all. And what must be their thought process that they would say this? And all, how you do, and you just think they're so wonderful. Anybody else looking in thinks they're a little smart aleck and a brat, but you think they're wonderful because of their advanced vocabulary. And it's good that you develop the intellect of the child and to have vocabulary, but only in appropriate circumstances. So bottom line there, you have to guard yourself, especially when they're little, against thinking that they're so cute that you disregard the fact that they just talk back to you, and without repercussions if you didn't say anything. Well, that wasn't very good training, was it? So they're going to keep doing that until they're 14 or 16 or grown.
So part of what you're saying is that you can't start too early paying attention to, are you indicating to them what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, the appropriate setting, the appropriate time, and the appropriate way to do things. And that's going to, you may not even think of that as a honoring you issue or politeness issue, but it really does come into play. And to have that in your mind in all these interactions is part of what you're going to do as proactive parenting.
Well, if you're going to have little ladies and gentlemen that you can be very proud of, and that you can turn loose in mixed social circumstances,
or even take to a restaurant,
or even which might not be mixing up too much, but if you're going to have that functioning in your little troopers, then you need to realize that it's just like socialization skills, for crying out loud. Know when to be quiet. Just something as simple as the discipline of, there's times when we're quiet. There's times when we simply don't talk. So do not speak until called upon. which seems so strict and rigid. But the truth is, that's just common courtesy and politeness. And what if you have to take your kids to a funeral? You know, what if you have to take your kids to maybe their great grandparents' birthday or their 50th wedding anniversary or something like that? You don't want your kids running around hooting and hollering and carrying, well, maybe you're used to it, but basically disrupting everything so that all eyes can be on little bratty Johnny or whatever. You may think that's acceptable, but I'm telling you, society as a whole, they may put up with it, but they don't accept it as being polite. And then the kids pay the price. Bottom line, nobody wants a kid around because the kid's loud and obnoxious and disrespectful and mouthy. So, you know, it doesn't, other than your embarrassment, it may not affect you, but that child suffers the repercussions of people not wanting the child to be around, and that causes rejection.